Welcome. Thanks so much for being here. I know that this is a challenge because we set up some special meetings, so it could be a bit of a stretch for our schedules. So welcome. We're glad you're here. And let's begin with roll call.
Lydia McBarney. Jay Bell,
Here.
Jim Gilliam,
Here.
Monica Hernandez can't be here today, nor Jennifer Jeffries. So Bob Lemon,
Here.
Lucas O'Connor also can't be here. Charlene O'Keefe here. Renee Ricketts here. Juliet Rodriguez, Felicia Shaw here. Ada Shido and Annalise Wakefield also can't be here today. All right.
Okay, very good. Are there any public comments?
No, they're not.
Okay, any comments about the approving of the minutes?
No.
Very good. So trusting you've seen the minutes, and if there is a motion to approve
So moved.
and a second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? I think Jay was not. Jay, were you here? Okay, so then Jay would be abstaining.
I wasn't here.
Oh, and Charlotte.
Usually I was watching online.
Oh, very good. All right, super. Okay, moving on to discussion items. Any public comments about item A?
No.
Okay, very good. All right, saying we're gonna let you take this.
All right, so you guys may recall, I think back in April or March, Felicia brought forward and mentioned an opportunity for a public-private partnership with Prebys to do a grant program. So we've been working behind the scenes to work with them on that. So I just wanted to give a quick update regarding that grant program. The first part is that the funding source, the only funding source we could find for that grant program for this year is the CENRP program. And we have briefed the supervisors on their options, I think back in May, about the opportunity, what it means and things like that. So that said, what that means is we're gonna kind of take our existing CE program and add a question or two, a little bit of pieces so that if somebody wanted to go specifically for this program where Prebys would match. So county and Prebys would match 1-on-1 for the program with the intent that they would do some kind of arts and culture project or program in the community. The supervisors would still be the ones to select and choose that because that was one of their biggest questions. Like, hey, because it is the CE program, do we still have authority to?
What is CE program?
Community enhancement, I'm sorry.
Oh, I heard that called so many different things.
So we have,
CEP, CE,
yeah,
CE, blah, blah.
yeah, community enhancement program is
Okay,
what it
I know
is,
what
so
it
you'll
is.
hear that. And then the other one we have is NRP, which is the
Right.
neighborhood reinvestment program. So with that said, the intent is to get this money out the door by the end of this calendar year, or at least decided by the end of this calendar year,
And to go
Really?
where?
By December.
ideally. Yeah,
Mm.
we're hoping. So we're gonna be meeting with the supervisors grants people, letting them know what it is. There's still things that to be finalized. We're still meeting with Prebys to see what they need on their end for their due diligence. We've been talking back and forth, comparing what we, the county, do for our due diligence. They've seen our application, they know what the vetting we do. And then so on their end is the question of like, what do they need? And we're trying to do it in the least bureaucratic way. We don't want people having to fill out 2 forms, for example. So if there's something we can do for Prebys and just add it to the existing grant program, we can, or existing agreement, that's our ideal situation. So that for everybody else, it's just fairly seamless. That's it in a very short nutshell. So I'll just open it up for questions now. Yes,
How much money is Prebys thinking they would put? into this?
$250,000.
Okay,
Yes,
and then the supervisors would then have to match that with community enhancement
Yes.
program money. So that would bring us to a total of half a million.
yes.
And what is it expected? Is this just gonna be like a pool of money that people can apply for?
Yes, so we do, because it is CE, it does need to have a sponsoring like nonprofit or public agency, but the
Right.
intent is, one of the
It does
things.
or doesn't?
It does,
So
but
an
the intent-
individual could not apply for it.
they
It would
could
have to be-
not, but one of the things we're gonna be looking at is asking for, hey, how is the money breakdown going?
Mhm.
To choose projects, the intent is to get the money as much in the hands of artists as possible.
Mhm.
And not, let's say, administration costs or one-time costs for something else. So the intent would be the projects would have to hire or work with artists. And then the artists would be paid and their supplies would be covered and so on and so on.
So my next question is, this pool, this pocket of money is separate
Mhm.
from the already budgeted funds that would go to public art for county buildings.
Yeah, I'm sorry, can you
Okay,
repeat the
so
question?
we already have county buildings
Mhm.
that are being built
Yes,
and county buildings that are being cleaned up or whatever, refurbed, have a certain amount of money
Yeah.
for public art
yes,
that's already in the budget.
yes.
Is there any chance that this would be moved to fund that, or will this stay a separate thing?
It'll be completely separate.
Okay.
So the public art budget you're thinking of for capital buildings is part of the capital
That's
planning
what I'm thinking of,
project.
right?
So that's
That's correct.
already planned and
Exactly,
that money's been.
So they can't double dip is
Yeah.
what you're asking.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I just want it to be out there publicly. They can't double dip, and that's why I'm asking it.
And could you
Ah.
clarify?
Renee,
And then who administers that, so. Cause you mentioned supervisor, yeah. this
So it'll
one-
be our existing grants team who currently administers the CE program, the community enhancement program.
Right,
And who's on that team?
It
Did
is
we
headed
get that?
by Tuesday McGowan
Okay,
is the head of that team, and then they have about 4 or 5 or
okay.
so staff members under that.
and is this something that happens, I'm sorry, were you about to say something? Is this something that I mean, this. It's wonderful when someone wants to support and with a generous grant, of course, but in thinking about like. Making sure that. The decision of how to use that money, so that just, especially when like the county is involved, and it's a private.
Yeah.
Institution, I'm sure it's also, it's like, well, if there's someone else who says, well, now I see that Prebys Foundation is working with the county out
oh,
there too as
glad
well.
to see.
Like well, how do we establish a kind of standard? So that if this others want to step forward, they like if one is allowed, others should be allowed, or B, if one is held to certain, has to be accountable in certain ways, then we are establishing that and for the future as well.
So,
Because when we don't, we're like, it's great, there's an opportunity, but I feel like there's this shaky road. If I
Yes.
completely not think about who's doing it, what, not knowing down the line, we don't want any implication or any suggestion that that's their relationships that, we want it all to be kosher, basically.
Are you thinking favoritism, something like that?
No, I mean, not necessarily, it's just you don't want anything to suggest that in any way, so that we're saying the county is always open to receiving donations. Here's how it works.
mhm.
And so we're setting a precedent, we're creating a
This is how
model.
it works, yeah.
Has this been
Hopefully
done
we-
before, a partnership like this?
We have done multiple things similar, especially during COVID. So we did a lot of small I don't remember small business loans was done. We do a lot with, let's say, the San Diego Foundation
Mm.
through grants with that. They match a lot of those grants that the county funded through ARPA and things. So we have had precedences for things like this.
Good.
Ask for policies for donations and things like that. Fernando would remember, because we literally because I asked him about this, just the last week, we do have policies on donations and how that all works. So direct donations versus in
So
kind.
There's a policy that governs
Okay.
donations to the county.
Yes.
Yeah, especially I think anything over 5,000 has to be approved by the Board of
And
Supervisors.
I
Do
can,
you know the name of that policy? Is there a number?
Somebody look it up.
I'll get an email.
yeah, let me search. for this.
And it's on like the supervisor's agenda.
Yeah.
You can see everything we're getting.
Yeah.
Grants and donations.
And then part of it's gonna be whoever the organization is, like this is Prebys, and it's for arts, so they can't. they're gonna put their own restrictions
Mm.
when they make, when they make the agreement. The other thing is eventually down the line, I would think this organization's goal is to, at some point, you know, we look more like the city or the county of LA, where we are directing, or somebody, or staff that's focused on the arts is
Yeah.
directing eventually. But we don't wanna lose this opportunity to get this money and create this partnership.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So give me 1 second. So the policies that govern this, one is Administration Code, Section 66. That's regarding donations of 5,000 or less. Above that, it would be governed by Board Policy A112. And I can send this out after a meeting.
That would be good, because you know what? We might need to be well versed in this.
Yeah.
So I just had a question, well, actually I have two questions. So I know the community enhancement funds are given to each district supervisor equally,
Mhm.
is that true?
Yes,
And then they choose the arts among other things to
Yeah.
fund with the community enhancement.
Mhm.
So now, if I'm understanding correctly, they would add a couple of questions to all community enhancement applications, questions about, you know, are you funding artists or that
Yeah.
sort of thing? So has there been conversations about whether this Prebys matching will have any you know, equity among the different districts, or is it just up to whichever supervisors are funding the arts in their district, and then those that happen to be funding artists would be matched by Prebys? Does that make sense? Like, it's
I-
not,
It does
See?
Is
today.
it 50 grand per supervisor? Or is
Yes.
it one bucket?
that's what I'm saying.
it's
Is it-
50 grand per supervisor.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was like, trying to figure out how to
And
answer.
so that was my question is it being distributed to all of the districts? Or if there's a supervisor who funds more arts in their district, are they gonna get a larger percentage of the funds?
The way we've told the supervisors is each of you, we're asking that each supervisor puts things for $50,000. Look at that and know that $50,000 from each of your districts can be matched by Prebys.
Okay.
And that's also how Prebys came up with the $250,000. Is
Okay.
like, how do we equitably
That's
give
for
to each
community
district?
enhancement, not for arts.
Well, from Prebys, it's for arts.
So
So, but for the supervisor's decision. When people apply, they can mark off like, yes, we are an arts organization, are doing things, and we would
then
like
they
to
can access
participate.
the Prebys.
And then they
match.
can also do the Prebys
Okay,
match, so
okay,
that
that's
their proposal would be for the total amount.
Right,
Where the county would
Right.
put in 50% and then.
But a
Prebys would-
non-arts wouldn't be.
No.
Be able to,
Yeah.
yeah, and that's why we have those extra questions. Okay,
Yes.
great.
But just remember, normally with county, I don't know if it's in both their programs, but it doesn't necessarily have to go to that supervisor's district.
Yes,
Mhm.
They can say, look,
Right.
a big chunk of our constituents go to this place. So therefore they're being served by it, so we're gonna contribute, or it's a great cause because the whole county can enjoy it. So some of the money may, even though it's your supervisor and my supervisor, it may get spent in a different district, because that's,
Yeah.
right now, that's their prerogative. That later down the road, if we have more control, we can maybe force them, or force whoever to do that, but that would be something we talk about down the road.
And then my second question was, with this grant program,
Mhm.
it seems like this commission is not playing a role at all in
The decisions.
the decisions or the funding or any of that. Is that true?
that is true.
Okay.
However, now that you guys know kind of what the process is, and we're really talking to supervisors, if, let's say, you had any thoughts or opinions, you're always welcome to reach out to your supervisors and say, hey, But at this point, because it is through CE process and the commission isn't part of that process, there isn't. That doesn't prevent you from, if you wanted to get more involved, to reach out to your supervisors.
But I mean, we can look at.
Yeah.
We were involved in a way, because it wouldn't have happened without Felicia's work.
Yeah.
So, so it's just not where we want it yet, and we're still,
Yeah.
learning how to overcome these obstacles. That are in front of us, because we're new.
Am I allowed to ask a question? Thank you. So
So given that they have decided that it's still their prerogative to make the decisions. The funding that came, the funding from Prebys that came that their way was through the commission's advocacy. We helped them raise the money. A, is there a way to at least acknowledge publicly that this increase or this initiative, this project is made possible through the efforts of this body? That through this body's influence and advocacy, is it possible to give this body some credit for doing it? Secondly, I understand that any of us as citizens can advocate to our supervisors and say, hey, I have an idea. Either with our commission hat on as a citizen, we can say whatever we want. But is it possible in this transition phase, given our influence, that we could help advise in the development of the guidelines? And what I mean by that is, we know that there are some programs out there that this idea was modeled
Yes.
on. Could we say, here are some examples of some questions that might help the arts and culture community respond better?
Yes.
Or here are some ideas for, we help with outreach perhaps?
Yes.
Could we help with, just, supervisors make the final decision? Could we have first pass, perhaps? That's not last, but it's first, that we could help whittle down, perhaps. Could we do that?
Yes, you can always ask them to do those things. And then something that would help also is to look at the CE and NRP board policies that we have that pretty much outlines our entire policies and procedures. So a way to do that would also be if you had suggestions for the supervisor, a proposal for an edit to that board policy, because that's what they're governed. Well, that's how they make the decision on if the program changes.
So look at the board policy and see if it's favorable to arts and culture, because right now the questions are neutral.
Yes.
And now we're asking the community to respond to something that is specific.
Yes.
So we can say either the policy changes to be specific to arts and culture, and we want an edit to the policy, because it seems like editing the policy is a little bit severe.
Not for this one program, but
No.
I think you guys are thinking in the future, correct?
No, I'm thinking like right now,
Okay.
if with this cycle, since it's a pilot,
Mhm.
and we're just trying something out, that they get the final decision, but could this body be asked by the supervisors to serve in some type of advisory role to do a first pass?
Could I provide some information? So the duties and responsibilities of the board, this board are laid out in the administrative code. And among those duties is the ability to promote and advise on topics that touch upon culture, arts and culture, of course.
Yeah.
And so I think that there is that ability to promote and advise the board of supervisors. Where you might run into some issues is to the extent that you're participating in a decision that is somehow inures to the benefit of the organizations that each of you individually participate in.
Okay,
That's where you may be conflicted out
Okay.
of that that decision to promote and advise. That's where it gets a little
fair enough.
difficult.
Okay.
Or if, would it help if, you know, if we were doing something like that, if we have an organization that's in a district, we don't advise on anything in that district?
Well,
Or,
there would be some requirement to abstain from that decision-making process because of conflict. of
Wouldn't the
interest.
conflict of interest be directly to the organization that I'm affiliated with? For instance, if I'm on the board of an organization and they're an applicant, of course I should recuse myself.
Right.
I don't know that it actually has to extend to the full district. What are your thoughts?
That's true, and it would be a case-by-case issue, so conflict of interest law is complicated, but those analysis would be case by case, but clearly if you are if there's a decision that impacts the organizations that you are members of and receives a financial benefit to.
And I wasn't even thinking of getting down to decisions before we even know who's in the pool. we look at the questions and say, if we were developing the guidelines, here are the questions that we would like you to consider, and we're done with it. We are no longer involved. They can use those recommendations or not.
And we don't even vote on them. We just sort of are putting them into the
Some.
consideration file.
Here's some, and then we're done.
Yeah, I think that the only way that that becomes a problem is if any of those policy recommendations can be interpreted to somehow benefit the potential applicants that you may participate in. And that would be the only thing that.
I think that goes into I mean, and in that case, you could make a case for conflict of interest for everything. Because we all are participating in everything that so it would be a conflict of interest if we were voting on the questions for instance, I think we recuse ourselves when we're doing, but if, anything could be interpreted to be beneficial, because of course, we're trying to actually benefit all arts and culture, applications. So it's actually designed to try to support every application that is.
Well, I think the question is benefit one over the other. So if it benefits all, then there's not, I think, an issue of conflict in that context. But if there's some policy recommendation that is being advanced by the board and each of you are participating in, and that particular policy provision may be in order to the benefit of your organization over and above the rest. Let's say, for instance, you happen to participate in a music industry
Right.
and the policy provision says we prioritize music
Yeah.
over, something else.
I mean,
And so,
that's understandable.
so it would be like that, as an attorney, it's a risk mitigation thing and it's on a case by case basis. Broad discussions about conflict of interest ultimately reach that conclusion where almost anything can be conflict of interest.
Of course.
But not everything is when you dive into the details on a case by case basis.
So can we finish this thought, this sort of
So,
stuff? Because could we submit questions for their consideration?
I think so. I don't have a concern with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because we are the policy experts and they did bring us in here for this very purpose. And we do have the ability to advise and, work with the supervisors.
And we do that current. That's part of our, that's like what we do.
Right.
It's
Right.
part of our responsibilities.
and particularly since the existing guidelines are not arts and culture specific.
Mhm.
Now we have a pilot project that is arts and culture specific. I would think they would love to have our input on what questions are that we might pose that would help elicit the best response. I would think that's part of our advice, but we're not selecting anybody.
Yeah.
And they can choose to use those questions or not. And of course, as a body, we would make sure that no one says, and make sure that museums get a priority.
Exactly.
We wouldn't do that.
Could say that.
We wouldn't say that.
Well, I can say that.
But that's the point, like, we have checks and balances, that's why we all we have different backgrounds, different expertise. And we don't always agree, and we have those conversations here for everyone to also hear and participate, and I think.
Time is everything, particularly since they want to do it so fast.
Yes.
And so we would have to make time for that. So just to summarize first, we want some credit.
Yes.
The money didn't fall out of the sky. Okay, so this body wants some credit, and then two, we'd like to exercise our responsibility to advise on the development of the guidelines in context of the overall. We don't look at them and say, well, if there's this new thing, what would we ask that would be helpful in the selection process?
I don't have a concern with that
Right.
right now, and what I can do is make sure, just run it up my chain of command, and then if that's fine, I can add it to our next meeting's agenda for discussion and proposal. That works out.
Well, we're running out of time.
Yeah, we are running out.
Shouldn't we kind of get, or would it be okay if they discuss now, or, we're not ready to discuss.
So it's not on the agenda, so.
No, it's
not on
you
agenda,
couldn't
yeah.
discuss
We
it.
don't
We
want to discuss
routinely
it.
provide supplemental information to
Yeah.
staff.
Yeah.
Direct to you that we find a benefit.
And you
If
can,
you need, if it's, time is of the essence, maybe.
yeah, you can always email me directly the suggested questions, and then if there's time for me to bring it to the next meeting for discussion at the bigger group, I will. Does that make sense? Yes.
Were you thinking the group would do that, or we?
I want everyone's input. I mean, I wouldn't wanna just do it, you wouldn't wanna just do it, I mean, we all wanna have input, right? And so if we have one more meeting in October,
Yes.
is there a way we could have a little two-person special committee that might wrap their
Special
brain around
project
this?
You can,
Yes.
you can organize a project for this.
Could we organize a project
Yeah.
around this? Okay.
Yeah, if it's two people, it wouldn't have to be Brown Act.
Right,
So you guys can just discuss,
right.
send me any suggestions and proposals, but
All right.
And then bring that back to us in October.
Mhm.
So Zhang, what is guiding this, get it done by, receive the applications by the end of December?
Fiscal year, the.
Uh,
Cause I'm sure. it's
Because
not-
this could take some time for artists to kind of put their heads together and come up with an application. Because it's year round, CE is year round, correct?
Well, but I don't.
But
think-
different
Yes,
districts
you're
do it
right.
different
No, it's
ways.
yeah, well, part of it, a big part of it is making sure that the districts have enough money left over to do the grant. So we waited too long.
Because we're halfway through the year.
Yeah, they want to make sure that, hey, every district still has 50 grand to do the match. And ensure that that's there versus
Okay.
if we pushed it too much further, maybe one district may only have like 20 grand
Alright.
left, and that's not very fair, you know?
So if we meet in October, which is the third week in October, then it's basically November, December, there's a 2-month period of time where the public knows what these questions are and starts the
Yeah.
application process.
Well, and extensive.
The only way I think it's gonna work is if they are also allowed to work with existing recipients, and so much of that
Yeah.
work is doled out, so much of that money is doled out
Yeah.
in July, right at the beginning of the fiscal year.
Yeah.
So they'd have to.
Yeah, the deadline for
speaking- and I'm
District Two
speaking
is
on behalf
October
of all arts
31st, is
associations.
what they say.
Yeah, and we're meeting with, we are setting up a meeting with each supervisor's office so that they are aware that this is coming. So they had known back in May that it was coming. We hadn't given deadlines yet. But we are setting up a meeting with them like fairly immediately so that they're aware, knowing that each district may have.
Do they
separate.
have different deadlines? Somebody was asking me that, cause I knew
Yes.
that District Two's was
So each
but I didn't
each
know
district is
whatever
allowed
else.
to manage how they want to
to do their
review.
deadlines.
Yeah,
Okay.
so if they wanted to spend the entire year and
Mhm.
allocate, if they wanted to say, hey,
Okay.
we have to receive them by this date so that we have time to review and disperse, that's
Mhm.
also their, it's at their discretion.
Do I recall when we first started this venture that your team sort of looked into the percentage of community enhancement funds that went to arts organizations?
Yes.
Do we
so-
have that data? Because it would be interesting to see, are the supervisors already giving 50,000 or more to the arts, where this would then become an additional, truly a matching gift? Or is this, sadly, and I would hope it wouldn't be, but a shifting of responsibility to arts funding? You know,
Like supplanting.
like supplanting, or, they know, okay, my supervisor knows that, that.
I didn't do it already, so I'll just use it.
Right, or, they have to give some, but this is gonna be matched, so I'm just gonna give half of what I would have
Mhm.
already given. Because in that case, it's not really benefiting the arts organizations the way that I believe.
Can we
it was
stop that from
intended.
happening
We'd have
though?
So that
We'd have to
Likely-
monitor it, yeah, we'd
Yeah.
have.
So I just would like to have the data to begin with, so
Yes.
that we can monitor that and make sure that it's really doing what it's intended. That the
Like, we
funds are
wanna see
doing
an
what they-
increase
We
happen.
wanna see an
basically.
increase in arts funding. That's the idea with this, is that, it would increase access to funds for organizations.
And you had already come up with a list of the arts and culture money.
Yes, so sorry, I'm pulling it up right now. The latest we have is from 2020. So, and just know that we're also in the middle of trying to upgrade our grants system. So a lot of this is just manual work. So I always have to caveat any data. Sorry, it's a old data person in me. So just know that this is a staff person who went through and personally had to look at the names of organizations and do a guess of, yes, this counts as arts and culture. So we could be missing some, we could be counting some that shouldn't be there.
There's one other caveat. If it was from 2020, then that would mean it was redistricting.
Yes,
So might be
It's
good
also
if you go by the,
Districts, different supervisors too, with different.
They're
Exactly.
completely different supervisors,
so,
but I can tell you based on this,
okay,
the lowest amount in a district was 65,000. So,
for arts and culture.
And the highest was 250 something.
976,000,
Out of what, out of CE and NRP or just CE?
CE.
And
CE.
out of how much per supervisorial district in 2020? How was the total grant?
Oh, yeah, that's another.
That's, I don't know, so I have to pull up the.
They're not always equal.
No,
So
No, we know.
this year they're equal, but not always. Some-
What's total CE
sometimes
money
they're-
this year?
It's
I'd
a
have to pull
little
up our
over a
budget.
million per supervisor.
It's a million, so it's 5
No,
million.
it's a
total.
Five
little
point
over.
something, yeah, 5
Yeah.
point something total.
Yeah.
So it's
just
a
touch
little over.
million.
To echo what something Felicia was saying about acknowledgement to the organization, and all the work that's gone on, I mean. You're in the Office of Economic Development. The CE grant is in the Office of Economic Development. We're in the Office of Economic Development. I mean, so like, I think there's definitely a story there on how we're supporting the economic development.
Yes,
And then, so do you typically do a press release? Is it?
yes.
Press event, like what ways do you, when a large gift like this is given to economic development or to grant, how do you typically present that?
So we would usually, and especially with the short timeline, it would go through, our arts listserv to all the people on there. It would go through social media is what I do. And then I also reach out to all the board offices and let them know, like, hey, here's our stock language, and then they can use it or not as they wish and
Right.
alter, to fit. And I know in the past, what they would do for, let's say when we did it with small business grants, they all had in their newsletters, or by they, I mean the board offices, had it all in their newsletters, in social media and things like
So I
that.
think it'd be
Yeah.
appropriate for this committee to be involved in the draft version of that press release and some acknowledgement of that, of the work that's been done on the committee, and that we have to create location for it.
Yeah.
I've seen that with other grants that come through, that somebody from that organization would then have a quote there.
Yeah.
And the second one is just speaking on behalf of like all the arts organizations in our district is, have worked on outreach for the CPNR and NRP programs. I would definitely think if you want to get the money out by the end of the year, that current awardees would need to be included, so some sort of system for their application or their consideration is. I think the great, I know this is an intermediary step, but it's cool not to have to participate for those organizations in a whole other process if they've already been through the approval process,
Yeah.
so. And I know every CE grant, there's a narrative that district is aware of, that if criteria are prepared, they could be considered just off that narrative as well.
So if we were to be able to participate in a press release that was very arts and culture based,
Mhm.
that would launch the beginning of November
Likely,
with this timeline we're talking about here.
like,
When
yes,
is this on the agenda that the county would receive this money, a
for,
gift?
so how we're
Is
doing
this a
it,
gift, is the money gonna come through the county, or is Prebys gonna give it direct to those arts?
Prebys will be giving it direct, so we're
Oh.
yet another trying to get rid of, trying to go.
Mm.
Add more administrative
Right.
stuff, what it is we'd be giving a list to Prebys. They do to have their own due diligence, they have a system to vet grants and grantees and as well. Though they mentioned, like, based on our system, based on our process, they have a feeling it'll be pretty quick and easy on their end. And then what it is the applicants would just get 2 checks.
I got you.
Yeah, they would get 2 checks, but all the reporting and stuff would only be
And they
from the
list
county.
those grants.
Yeah.
So Prebys would defer, so there wouldn't be 2 final reports that the grantee would have to submit.
That's what we're trying not to do, so the
Good.
only report would be through the county.
That
to
would
the
be
county.
much help.
So
'cause,
that, we're
artists-
hoping 1 grant application, 1 grant agreement, 1 expenditure
That's
report.
preferred, especially for artists.
Yeah.
It's not really gonna be artists.
It's
Arts
arts
organization.
It's the arts organization, you have to be an
Yeah.
It is, but the artist is still having to provide all the data for the project.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, the one thing, I like your idea of tracking some of this, what happens afterwards, so we can report this. I mean, I was looking at some of the stuff they recently gave money to, for instance, one of the communities put up a sign. But if that money's going to that artist who created that sign or designed that sign, that is an artist,
Mhm.
so. But we can, when we look to the future, if we want to tighten those recommendations for things like that, that's something we'll have to look at, because, you know, people can look at the same application and say, oh, no, they're using art. So we're just gonna have to, you know, this time we can watch and see what happens and then give our feedback after.
I think the aspiration for all of this, at least when we began talking about it, was first of all, to give this body purpose. To say that, you know, we've been around for a year and, although we don't have an operating budget, there are other ways we could influence, right? So check. And then secondly, given our pillars, in our strategic plan, we talk about support to artists to actually provide work, opportunities for artists to work. And so although we can't give money directly to artists, but giving it to organizations that can in turn hire them, sounds like a win, a real win.
Absolutely.
That's, you know, rent being paid and, you know, all kinds of things happening because of these extra dollars. And then to demonstrate, and if we keep good records, to the county supervisors that, the arts matter, right? And the more investment, the more you get. And so we want to make sure that, out of this pilot project, we can use it as an example of what we could do in the future if we do more and continue with this. We don't want this to be a one-time effort, right?
Right.
All of the above. So that's why it's important that the community, this doesn't go under the radar, that it's above the radar. People know about it,
Mhm.
they appreciate it, and we leverage this as much as we can for our future.
Yeah.
Because before you know it, it's time to fight for the budget again,
I
right?
don't know if we will have the bandwidth to do this, but it would be nice to reach out to the organizations who do get the money and ask them to say, hey, send us, what were your numbers? How many people came to visit?
There you
How many
go.
people did this?
Right.
So that we can send that back to the supervisor and say, by the way, you know, we had 150,000 people went to these exhibits, or these
Right.
events that you sponsored. So you are getting that economic impact to
Yeah,
remind them
Jobs.
that's working.
I think it would be very wise of us to be a part of the beginning and the end. And so on the end, I think it would be useful if we created a report that identified the benefits to the community of this specific project and the numbers and what art was created and how it's impacted the county. I think it would be very useful for us, and it would be a terrific tool to elicit other, matching grant endeavors from other foundations, et cetera,
Or just a
potentially.
simple increase by the county and
Right, yeah. Oh, it builds our case. It builds our case. And it's part of the strategic plan to document that kind of stuff. So that's advantageous.
So is there a subcommittee being formed to prepare some questions, or is that where?
I think it would be useful to form
I thought it was
a
gonna be a
project.
two-person project.
A project is just two people. They don't have to be part of the Brown Act. I should think, Felicia, would you like to step
if I'm
in?
allowed, am I allowed? Why wouldn't you?
Why wouldn't you be
Well,
allowed?
yeah, at this
I don't
point,
know
she's
about
not a part.
It's the, am I just a regular person again?
She's just a commissioner.
Okay.
Come on.
I'd be,
Yeah, I'd be happy to serve on that.
Okay.
Work on the project with you,
Alright.
and I am confident we can get the general information, but I do.
okay, let's have at it. Let's have
Okay,
it.
very good. So, all right, we'll form a project with Felicia
So just in terms of the project, Felicia and I are gonna talk, and do we bring that back?
in October.
Okay.
Yeah, so bring us your whatever your results are.
Okay.
Very good.
And as a matter of fact, if we get at it, we can probably get it out to everybody ahead of time. Okay,
And
Yeah.
then to follow up with one of the things that was mentioned about like, asking organizations how many people have attended the event or whatever, we are anticipating trying to do a survey follow-up afterwards also. Just generally on the process, on the impact and those kinds of things,
That's
so
right.
as well. So I can also bring like a draft of those questions as well for you guys.
Okay, I mean, let's not make it too cumbersome, because this is like gonna be 5 to 10 grand per organization.
Yeah.
Stacking a whole bunch of.
Yeah, I'm thinking
on top
like-
of it.
Yeah, hopefully like 5 minutes or less kind of
Yeah.
survey.
I know from the programs I'm involved in, if we're paying artists to do work, sometimes the measurement is that person's
Receive.
fiscal independence, person's ability to make art. And sometimes, that's very different than when somebody has a music festival and say 100,000 people should.
that's so
You know,
good.
it's a-
Yeah.
So, sometimes programs that go deep can be more impactful for us.
Also, I mean, and I would say also their projects or an artist might be working on something, actually may not even produce some, like that.
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know if this is a completely different discussion or layered into the fact that part of, I think, what we should be doing is giving opportunities for artists to not have to worry about those things so they can actually be creative. And sometimes ideas don't get anywhere, but you need that. That's part of the process. So even like finding ways that we're funding, that we're supporting that as well, without the expectation that you're measured by something like that's very quantitative. Like numbers, or
It's
like,
just hard in this data driven age, if you don't show this like huge number.
it is, but I think that,
So it's nice if you can like.
yeah, if we can like
acknowledge that.
make some room for that.
The CE does, what is the cap on a CE application grant?
There
You
is
know,
none.
Okay, so they could ask for a very large amount. if
And
they-
we'll get it.
Right,
We
but
have
they
had
could
some
go
big
large.
requests.
Yeah.
I'll just
All
put
right.
it that way. Considered staff.
I think it's fine, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Nothing adjunct. Okay. Well, no, because there was a question, I'm with Supervisor Stepp's office and you asked, what was the percentage that we were giving out to arts and culture, and I just wanted to let you guys know, 23, 24. That was actually the highest, category that we gave, so we gave $1 million plus to arts and culture organizations, so. I just wanted to let you know that this is a discussion.
That's
that we're also
remarkable.
championing Within our office as
Right.
well.
Very exciting.
So-
So what
bravo.
I'm hearing is that an incentive is coming down from, that 50,000 is gonna be allocated from the CE.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Thank
50,000 to the CE from an outside entity.
Okay,
Yeah,
So additional funding.
It won't take, yeah.
okay, yeah, so I just wanted to just address that, yeah.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, moving on to item B. Are there any public comments for item B?
I'll give you 1 second. No, there are not.
Okay.
All right, I'll go ahead. Lucas couldn't attend today. He's not feeling well, so I wanted to. As you guys remember, we are in the middle of our legislative program feedback session. So October 2nd at 5 p.m. is going to be the virtual public community input session, but our Engage San Diego page is open for just comments in general, right now. That said, so the draft program is up. You can see what's there, the buckets. That said, Lucas did put together some possibilities from the legislative platform, and he said he drew it from the city. So you can consider this. So the first one is support legislation and enhance funding for direct funding to artists and nonprofit arts and culture organizations from agencies, including the California Arts Council, and enhance funding directed to municipalities such as San Diego for support of community-wide access to arts and culture through programs and partnership. That's one. The second one, support legislation and enhance funding from federal agencies directed to municipalities such as San Diego for support of community-wide access to arts and culture through programs and partnerships. The third is support legislation and regulatory actions that support investment in arts, culture, and creative districts. Support legislative and regulatory actions to support investment in the creative workforce, such as SERA, the Creative Economy Revitalization Act. Support measures that develop and promote the entertainment industry locally, such as opportunities for local film and television industry workers. And lastly, support and advocate for additional expansion of the state's film tax credit program.
Hmm.
I know this wordy, I'm gonna try to throw this on a document and for you guys to see it.
A couple of them sounded so similar, I couldn't tell the difference between what he was advocating.
Yeah,
Because of the
Yeah.
language he was using.
Yeah,
I understood most of them, but there was at least two.
Yeah.
That I couldn't discern how they were different. Did he not touch on artist housing at all? Like
No.
AD?
yeah, that's.
he mentioned creative districts,
Yeah.
but that's it, support, but that's it.
Yeah,
Oh, creative.
and he calls them creative versus
Yeah.
cultural.
But I think we're starting to say creative district. I
Are
don't
they?
know why.
Is that the new buzzword?
I guess, I don't know.
I mean, those sound great. What's our, when do we need to get these to staff?
Um, I would
Is
say
there a
around,
timeline?
around October 2nd, October 5th.
Okay, so we need to move, we need to
Yeah.
give them to you today.
Mhm.
Very good. So maybe we want to do a little review of the docs.
Yes.
Yes.
I'll zoom in, but that's extremely small.
Can I just be sure what we're looking at? So this is going to become our recommendation to the legislative program about what we think they should support.
Yes,
Arts and culture wise. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, okay. I wanted to make sure that I was framing it properly.
Yeah, I think it's the third and the fourth bullet, I thought.
Arts, culture.
Oh, no, this, I see how this is different. Okay, I get it. Okay, I see the first. Okay.
Yeah, there we go.
Community-wide access to arts and cultural programs and partnerships. Community-wide, okay, so the second bullet is federal.
Right.
The first one is state.
It doesn't really say.
No. So the first one, it says such as California Arts Council,
We
state. The second one,
And enhanced funding directed.
it doesn't say like such as the National Endowment for the Arts. It
Right,
says-
exactly.
It just says any federal agency, which probably is
Okay.
better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably better.
true. Humanities, other groups.
I don't know why it didn't do the same thing for the state, because state could be anything too. He called out California Arts Council, but not like National Endowment for the Arts in the state.
On two, what if we said state and federal agencies?
Yeah.
Or is that redundant to number one?
Community-wide access. What is? Okay, so the second one is just like the first one, except the second one says federal. That's the only difference.
And it
right?
doesn't tease out artists specifically, mentioning them specifically.
The first one mentions direct funding for artists and nonprofits and such,
And the,
whereas the second one just says, hey, just in general, we
In
want more
general.
funding.
from federal agencies.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh. So why wouldn't we include the direct funding language in the second one to make it complete? Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Can you
Because,
combine those two? Or are you saying keep them separate?
well, he was being specific, saying state stuff, federal stuff. And we just are missing direct funding to artists and nonprofit arts and cultural organizations in the second bullet, if I'm
Right.
understanding his,
Yeah.
Yeah,
his thinking.
the second half of each bullet is the same.
It is the same.
Right.
But one is state
six, it's
and
state.
one is federal.
All right,
So can we say state and
why not
federal?
say state? Why not
I
put-
mean, that's
why
a
not-
lot of words to repeat.
Why not add state to the first bullet so that they're distinctly different?
This, I'm
The second
respecting
bullet.
his expertise. Maybe he knows something we don't know.
I,
but
yeah,
maybe-
he is the policy guy.
So maybe he knows to keep them
Yeah,
separate for a reason.
okay,
So we got state,
let's defer.
we have federal, and so it's really clear.
But do you want to add state to the first bullet? So it is distinctly different.
Oh, I see.
Or
what
did he
you're
not,
saying.
did he just happen to call out a state agency there?
That's all he's done is made,
But-
called out a state agency.
But he might not have just meant state, he might have meant all.
Well, like he did in the second one, I think he's not saying National Endowment for the Arts on purpose. Or maybe he just forgot to say that. He's not here, so.
Well, and his lead in is artists and nonprofit arts for bullet one, and that's not in bullet two.
Which is confusing, because the rest of the sentence is the same, so if we
Right.
could get into his brain, we're gonna assume.
I did send him an email.
He
I don't
means
know if
both.
he's able to
I
respond.
mean, we could align the two, really. We could combine the two if you wanted to. State and federal artists and community-wide access.
I don't know enough
Is it too
about their
much?
legislative process, whether you need to be explicit. And say state, same thing, and federal, same thing. I don't know, but if I were,
If you only have the second dot point, we are limited to just looking at federal agencies, if that makes sense. If you're gonna be, you're gonna explicitly call out federal,
And you're limited
then
to
we're
that.
gonna be limited to,
You're only gonna
Federal.
apply it to federal.
yeah.
so we want to keep them separate, correct?
You can, but I'm just saying, like, if you were gonna get rid of one dot point, and you're gonna call out specifically federal, my recommendation would be to say state and.
Oh, I
That's,
see.
that's.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
in the
so,
second,
yeah, in the second.
from state and federal agencies
I don't know his thinking,
about the
these?
California Arts Council.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and what it is I can also talk to my colleague who's overseeing the legislative program and make sure they understand, like, we mean any agency, any
well, and
funding, so help us word it as needed to account for that,
Any.
so, yeah.
And it looks like in the first bullet point, he's saying funding direct funding to artists, nonprofit organizations and municipalities is what we're looking at. So we're looking at funding for all that should be directed towards all of those things.
Yes.
But the only difference is in the second bullet, he adds the word federal and then he applies. So we're asking for the same
Federal
thing in one and two
municipalities.
for municipalities and blah, blah,
we
blah.
are.
So why not dump that? Why not shorten bullet one and have it in, including the California Arts Council
Have it
and
read
other
just like the
agencies,
second
period? And then let just the second one apply to support for San Diego community-wide access.
In other words, the second bullet is the standard.
Leave the second bullet, but I would add state and federal to the second bullet. And I would eliminate the last half of that for the first item. Because it's redundant.
You'll talk to him and
Yeah.
find out his intentions.
Yes, and I'm also checking our legislative program.
Okay, and
And
then,
he might be doing that because for the sponsorship proposals, they split between state and federal,
That's what
and
I'm
then
saying.
federal and state. So he might have been doing it from that perspective, as I'm scanning through our legislative program right now.
and the legislative program only affects state and federal funding only? Or are there other sources of funding
It's
that they
public,
deal with?
like municipal, like.
This is kind of like, think of it like what we would be lobbying.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
lobbying
so
at the
anything
state and
that's
federal level.
required.
Okay.
Yeah,
So let's just stick to that.
yeah, so nothing
Okay.
private.
Yeah.
Then bullet 3 talks about really arts, culture and creative districts.
Yeah.
So that would be our cultural district initiative.
That's it.
And what if we added housing to bullet 3, since the cultural district housing is part of that?
Yeah, it's, they're connected, and I know why he's calling out creative district, cultural districts, is because of AB 8112. That talks about if you're within that 10 miles
Right,
of a cultural district, then you're supposed,
right,
You're
yeah, exactly.
encouraged.
Half mile. What if we just added, don't end at districts and just add artist housing via AB 812 or something like that?
With comma and artist housing via.
You know, something,
Like he did in the next bullet, he calls out the Creative Economy Revitalization Act, and we call
Or
out.
could we call legislation? It's legislation for artist housing at this
Yeah,
point,
it's-
correct?
AB 812.
Yeah, right.
So such as legislation for
Artist housing, yeah, we could do that. Just in
Because
case
that's how it's such as, and he calls out.
Such as,
Wait, is it?
such an artist housing such as AB 8112. I don't even know what it's called.
That's it.
It doesn't have a name.
Well, I don't know. You're right. I don't know.
It has a name.
Maybe 812. It's a big, enormous name, I'm sure.
Mhm.
Anyway, that's important for us.
Yeah.
All right, bullet 4.
That's a good one. I wouldn't mess with that.
Okay, yeah, it looks good. 5. Entertainment, which is film, television. Do we want to add creative economy or something?
Oh, entertainment and creative workforce. I mean, we already talked about workforce stuff at the top, and so never mind on that.
And if we're saying locally, do we need to say local film?
We did, we said.
But do we need to repeat it? It's implying,
Not necessarily.
Local.
So
film
you
and
could be
television.
bringing film down here, but not utilizing
Any local stuff,
local, yeah,
except the place.
actors and stuff,
Okay.
yeah, yeah.
so leave it as is.
That might be overthinking the words, but
And the last one is something specific, right? I don't know what is that like
Yeah.
a bill or something, or?
yes, so that we currently have a film tax credit program to encourage people to film in California. So they get a tax credit for doing X amount of their show or movie in
Here,
California. Then there's an extra incentive outside what we call the 30-mile zone. So the 30-mile zone is within LA, so outside of that, they have an extra bump in incentive for that
But you're
too.
not LA.
Yeah, because
Does,
they usually don't need it's.
do we have to be specific about San Diego, the way the top ones are specific about calling out San Diego?
He was just referring to the city though, as a municipality.
No, he said such as San Diego. It could be
Right.
Lemon Grove, it could be.
Right, right,
South Beach,
but-
it could be-
But versus San Diego County.
Right, municipality.
Yeah.
But what I was saying on the last bullet,
Oh,
it just says expand the state's film credit, so they could do it in Kern County, they could do it in San Francisco, but should we be
To
specific?
include
San Diego
San
County.
Diego County.
Spell it out.
Is that what you're thinking? Spell it out?
Well, he spelled it out and others like.
Yeah, no, that's,
Such as San
spell it
Diego
out.
Or for San Diego County at the end, just add it.
and special states film tax credit in municipalities such as San. I don't know.
You have to,
San Diego
Such
County.
counties, yeah, I don't know, what do you think, Jenny?
I don't
You don't have a,
have a
You don't
strong
have-
feeling for this.
an advocate for additional expansion of the state's film tax credit program, so all we're saying is just expand it, we might get some or not.
Yeah.
well, why don't we say locally then at the end or something like that?
For local,
Film tax credit program locally.
I don't really know much about the film tax credit, but to the extent it's a credit, taxes.
so it doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah,
It
Okay,
should
I
be,
got you.
it should be statewide.
right, that's
It would
my
be-
inclination, but
Okay.
I don't know the
You're right.
details of that.
Yeah.
All right, let it ride.
You're exactly right.
Credit.
Okay,
So 2 years ago, there was a legislation specific for San Diego County that didn't make it pass very far. So there was one that, this one is, I believe, the existing, because it's an
Okay.
expansion.
It's a tax credit,
Yeah,
period.
it's already an existing program. He's just asking for
They
an
just want
expansion.
more.
all right, so we did not add the word state to the second bullet. Do we want to? State and federal agencies. Yeah, and then we need to decide if, so are we gonna wait for Lucas to chime in on the redundancy between bullet 1 and 2?
Yeah, see if there was a reason he separated them.
Right, but we have to approve this at some point, this meeting.
We could
So we have to
approve
vote.
it with the caveat
Mhm.
that, of something like we approved it on the caveat that.
Right.
examines those.
With revisions suggested from Lucas.
Yeah.
Perhaps.
The other things I don't see on there that at a state level, what they've been talking about is, one, there's legislation to protect involving ticketing.
Oh, yeah.
So a lot of organizations, for instance, and this happened to me years ago when I was involved with the events course. We'd have a concert and people would go online and start selling tickets for our concert, charging instead of the $35 for ticket, they were charging $110 for the ticket. And people would get confused and buy
Oh.
tickets through them.
Scalping.
So that's happening. It's even scalping. It's more predatory.
Yeah.
They don't even have tickets. They're just trying to,
Oh,
but they may or may
They
not give
set
them a
up
ticket
fake
or not.
It's
websites that
that,
looked.
But there's
very similar
legislation trying
website.
to come down to protect organizations from that, and try to. So that's one thing. I don't know if we want to go there, one, if it's maybe too late. And then the other thing would be that they're talking about a lot now is social, any bills that come forward involving social prescribing, like of the arts.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if they make that available, for instance, if they, there's a bill about, what do they call them? Not psychologists, but,
Psychiatrists.
sorry, yeah,
Psychiatrists.
psychiatrists, but those healthcare workers that deal with those issues about getting, their license to let them prescribe, health, arts and nature
Yes,
for health, for people who are.
as a
so
treatment.
As a
rehab,
treatment.
Yes.
Right, there's some bills out there right now that are starting to come out. So I don't, but it may be too late to have
Covered?
those in there.
No, it's not, no, it's, arts, on.
Arts for
on
healing or
prescription.
something?
I
Yeah,
think
that
that's
type
the
of a
name.
concept, so
Can you
anything
look up the
involved
name of it?
Yeah, it's like, that sounds familiar, arts prescription.
Uh-huh.
two that are, starting to happen.
But these bullets negate them, or they don't include them?
I
No,
don't.
no,
Okay,
that's
so
a
let's add
totally different thing.
I don't know if I can find,
We could look on Californians for the Arts site or let's see, who else is doing something?
It's called like arts on prescription.
Arts on prescription, that's it.
Yes.
Okay, you want to single it out,
Yeah,
that we support arts on prescription legislation?
we get the problem.
What if we added it to bullet one after California Arts Council to include initiatives such as blah, blah, blah?
Well, that wouldn't be funding for artists.
No, it wouldn't be,
nonprofit.
you're right, it would be the second bullet. Support legislation enhance
It
funding,
could be more in a second, yeah.
okay. Municipalities such as sending.
I
And
don't even-
partnerships and legislation, including.
Yeah, but I don't
That's
think, because
legislation.
that funding would be for. I don't know how it looked at the legislation, but I don't think it would. That one says directed to municipalities. I don't think municipalities would be
You're right.
involved in the arts.
and this may not even
prescription.
involve as much just funding as allowing this stuff to happen.
Mhm.
So to let doctors or psychologists prescribe the arts in California or provide
Well,
right now, it's the licensing process for those type of professions to involve the arts is a whole nother schooling that they have to go through. They're trying to
Yes,
get
it's
rid of
called
that.
arts on prescription.
why don't we add a bullet? And just take bullet 3 text and where we have said arts, culture. Districts and just add it toward. And include arts and prescription and. Yeah, support legislation, regular actions that support. Exactly. And if we knew, Bob, what your other one was about the ticket
Ticketing.
issue.
Yeah.
Okay, that's excellent, that those are out there.
Another way they talk about it is arts-based social prescribing. That's another.
And maybe we can just say arts-based social and arts
Prescribe.
prescribing it, arts and.
Support legislation that supports arts-based social prescribing
Yeah,
initiatives or something like that. Or social prescribing for the arts.
because that stuff is gonna start coming
It
very
is,
soon, and
uh-huh.
it's good that we start people, if nothing else, they'll say, oh, we read about that. And from the recommendations we put out, to make sure they're hearing about it, and then the other bill was,
Okay, that's good.
Was predatory ticketing.
Is it predatory ticketing perhaps, Bob?
yeah.
So there's SB 785 currently.
Yeah, I think you're right, privacy and consumer, so it's.
Deceptive and predatory ticketing resale practices.
Yeah.
Well,
Correct.
they say resale practices.
So it'd be something about predatory ticketing,
Practices.
for arts
Practices.
organizations or something.
Well, we already said arts-based, so if we just added it at the end and predatory ticketing,
That's, I think it's a totally separate. thing.
Yeah, I think it should be
I
separate.
would just keep those totally separate, just.
oh, so, all right,
So
should I do
just
another
more
bullet?
legislation protecting arts organizations from predatory ticketing. Practices, protect arts organizations from predatory ticketing practices, so that's what it would be. And we could put, for example, if we want to put that SB 785,
Yeah,
that would give them example for that.
Excellent, because that'll guide them,
Yeah.
the people to know specifically. The more we list the bills, the better.
and I don't know how this is gonna be presented, but I'm just looking at how many times we're saying support legislation and regulatory actions. Would it be easier to say that one time and then do bullet points so that
Like
these are the
1, 2, 3, 4,
actions?
5.
Maybe so.
So we could say support legislation,
Yeah.
enhanced funding and regulatory actions that support
I like
colon.
that.
And
It's
then
cleaner.
it's,
That's fine.
Yeah.
It's redundant. And do we have a number yet for arts and prescription? Is there an AB number or SB number?
I'm looking now, it may just still be in the,
Oh, the dream stage.
I don't
The dream
think
stage.
so, yeah.
Okay, all right. If there's a number, we could add it. If not, but you're right. That would clean it up just to say all these various issues.
and I don't know the application, if there's a reason why we have to repeat it so many times, but
No, exactly. Just take it out. Do it once, and then have A, B, C, D.
people might actually read it if you simplify.
right?
Then they might read half.
Mhm. Think there's anything else going through the, nothing around arts education, we got our Prop 28, the workforce,
Beauty the creative.
yeah, we got that. I think things are pretty good.
So I do know that there's currently a lot of lawsuits happening around Prop 28 funding. Um, and I don't know if there will be any new legislation coming out because of those lawsuits, but
No. I don't think that's. I think this is about doing something, not stopping. something.
no,
Yeah.
but it's really about clarity to make sure that the
It gets
funding,
implemented.
the
Yeah.
funding that the,
I think that's a good cleanup, Zach. I think we're good,
Yeah.
except for that first item. And do you guys feel strongly? Should we alter the text in bullet one?
Say that again?
Should we alter the text on bullet one, or just say that we'll wait for,
Yeah,
Lucas
she's gonna
is-
talk to him to make sure.
Okay.
of his
all
intent.
right, so let's entertain a motion.
So that would just potentially combine those two, so that's just less language and
If
wider
that's what he
reaching.
intended.
Right, so we'll just leave
Did you
it
get
at
your point made though about Prop 28?
no, but I just, if there is legislation coming, that would come out to implementation language that supports the initial intent of the Prop 28 funding, I think it would be important to advocate for that.
Cool. All right, how do we word it?
Support legislation or regulatory actions, and I would say that lead towards a equitable and fair distribution of Prop $28.
Yes,
So keep it broad.
Yeah. Okay,
Sorry, could you?
Sure, that, implements fair and just allocation of resources from proposition.
so would that fall into the support legislation regulatory
yeah, I
action
think
bullet?
you can put it under
So we
the,
could just copy it as another item under that,
as a sub bullet.
that implements.
So
Yeah, just
So-
take that. So.
Move it down as to one of the sub bullets.
like this.
Yeah, so but just take this
Oh, this,
from,
okay.
from that implements forward. Just take that section, move it into a
And move
bullet.
it down.
Okay. I see.
There you go.
There you go.
Wonderful. Well, we've been, you know, the specificity is really good. Because then we can track that. All right,
Thanks to Lucas
Mhm.
for doing this.
that was fast. See, we can work fast.
I'm sorry, this one, the equitable payroll fund, does anyone know anything about that one? Should we
Equitable payroll.
payroll fund?
Yeah. Was
Cool.
there a payroll system for performing arts
Mhm.
to kind of distribute the cost of workers' comp?
Okay, Zhang,
But
one
it's
more.
outsourced to an Arizona.
It has?
Believe it's not handled inside the state of California.
So we keep that broad, we could say, right, support legislative and regulatory actions that support arts organizations and general and administrative tasks, including payroll, insurance,
Mm-hmm.
and operating expenses. And I know like the big part of that was combining workers' comp insurance.
Mm-hmm.
We should say arts and culture organizations?
Yeah.
Okay,
And then as that bill comes up or something comes up.
It's SB 1116.
awesome.
It's the equitable payroll fund.
Yeah.
It will stabilize the performing arts workforce. California's first performing arts jobs program this is a grant program designed to support California arts workers by providing reimbursements of payroll expenses to small nonprofit performing arts. You should know about this, organizations with budgets under 2 million.
The equitable payroll fund. Excellent, it's there.
Such as SB 1116. Look at us being all fancy. Okay, I think we're done now.
You guys are on a roll. Serious, this is good. Lucas should be very happy. All right, at this point, can we enter a motion? That includes with the caveat of Lucas.
So moved.
A second? All in favor? Aye, opposed? Very good, thank you so much. Good. Saying, count that out. So we're gonna move on to item 5, which is subcommittee work regarding any questions or public comments regarding item A, strategic planning.
Yes, Patricia has,
Excellent.
give me 1 second. Let's get over to see.
Patricia.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Good. Congratulations on that sterling work on the legislature. I want to speak to the strategic planning. And I think that last thing you did was a very good example of advocacy work. And when looking at the strategic plan, I'm not sure that the plan yet has gone to the stage of being completed or prioritizing. And I'd like to put in a suggestion that you prioritize the things that you think that you can get done, and that you communicate the things that you've been able to achieve on a regular basis, so that the public is aware that this commission is actually doing something. So, for example, you could make an announcement about this legislature document to the public and let them know that these are all issues that are on your docket of support in an advocacy role. Not that you're going to do them yourselves, but that you're advocating for them. And but that's just one example. But I would very much like to see priorities made on the strategic plan. That sort of encapsulates what I wanted to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Patricia. Okay. So moving on, so strategic planning. We're,
So our last meeting, we ran out of time. We were gonna report out on specific strategies for each of our set of goals, because to Patricia's point, at the end of the day, we have this plan, we have a set of goals, we have a set of strategies that goes with those. And now, because we have become a working board, it's incumbent upon us to actually implement them. How do we activate those of you who aren't on the strategic plan to help? You don't know what needs to be done, and so we have to say, well, here are a list of things that we could actually get done in the next few months, and this is how we divide and conquer. We want to make it easier for you to help, and so that's the work that we're doing now. We're not ready yet to tell you what our action plan is. Often when you finish a strategic plan, you go into a period of time where you create a work plan. And from the work plan, you can actually say, hey, Jay, would you do this part? We're not ready yet. So we need at least one more meeting. I know that Charlene, you took a portion and then you took marketing and you tried to break it down in your communications. I took capacity building, and that would be what should we do as an organization to build our own understanding and capacity to do our work? What kind of training do we need? What kind of whatever it is we need to do our job better. So I took that on. And I think we had two more areas that each of us took on. Did you take on one, Jim?
yeah, I took on public art,
You took on public art, so there's some things in there.
right?
So I think we're getting close. Sorry for the drag. But each of those areas, we wanted to be specific when we came back to you so that you could say, okay, I can see myself doing that. And to Patricia's point, once we come back, there's gonna be gaps. Because potentially, there won't be takers for everything. And so we have to see, well, what's not gonna get done. And we have to decide that together. So if you will give us just a little bit more time, I can't promise we'll be back next time, but that's our goal. To come back with, here's our work plan, here are the opportunities. And now sign up in your 2-person committees or whatever it is it takes. to do
Yes,
that.
some will need larger.
Some may
will
need
formal
larger.
groups and others
Yeah.
won't, and
Mhm.
as you mentioned, Patricia said that we can use that as a guide, what we can prioritize is by what is our
Absolutely.
resources.
And I couldn't agree more that perhaps we should shoot for the end of the year to come out with some kind of year-end report back to the community. It's too early now for us to report.
Yeah.
But definitely the end of the year.
Good idea. Do we want to set a meeting of the ad hoc?
For the
for
strategic
this-
planning,
Yeah,
Uh,
the strategic planning. ad
We
hoc?
don't already have one.
No,
we
we don't have
do
a meeting.
not.
We don't have a meeting set.
Should we do that now?
Why not?
Okay, so we can try this month or we can try. You made a face, so that means no.
Yeah, I'm in Arizona the rest of the month.
Perfect time. Wait till I'm on, wait till I'm.
Feel free. I'm back on the
Wait.
third.
Wait till I'm gone.
I'm back
Well, we're
on
all,
the
I
30th.
can't believe how fast we're getting through September. It's ridiculous.
Mhm.
When
it is.
when you out
Oh, I'm back the 30th. So the week of the 30th is good, anytime.
the
then.
week of the 30th?
Yeah,
of this
September
month?
30. Like we were meeting like, was it Wednesdays at noon or something?
So Tuesday is the 1st of
Yeah.
October, so
Yeah.
anytime, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Sure.
Um, Wednesday the 2nd, how about that? No?
I'm gonna be fairly impacted between the 1st and the 12th, because that's our,
Gallon.
Okay,
so, but I can, if. Wednesday the 2nd is out, and I can try to make. Something on Thursday or Friday.
Sure.
Friday's my mental health day.
Thursday's okay with me, but it is Russia time. Rosh Hashanah, how you
Rosh
say that.
Hashanah, yeah.
And so if that doesn't affect any of us, that's okay.
Thursday, does that affect anyone?
Is earlier better for you, Charlene?
And it will be at Kearney Mesa, so
Well, that
We
helps.
were
Yeah,
at
that
the.
helps.
it'll be
That
work-
helps me a little.
Yeah.
And
you wanna-
Kearney
You wanna
Mesa,
try
yeah.
at 10?
that's where my
Okay.
easier.
Yeah,
office
either way, it doesn't
is.
matter.
10 o'clock on the third.
Yeah, why not?
Okay,
10 o'clock on the third? Okay.
Bob, 10 o'clock on the third?
That works for me.
Okay.
Whatever. So, what's we're at.
and if you haven't finished your work plans, come.
So if you had it during the
Come with
day,
a plan to finish the work.
if you had it Thursday, the third, during the day, am I correct that Rosh Hashanah starts at sundown?
Oh,
So that
at
means
5.
it's equitable to the public being able to
Yes.
attend?
great.
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Why don't we give ourselves to like, well, I think at least 2 hours for this. We gotta wrap it up.
Wrap it up. Let's wrap it
Okay,
up.
so 10 to 2?
Mhm.
Thank you.
10 to 12.
10 to 12.
10 to, sorry. Did I say 2?
You did.
Listen to me.
You just-
You just- I'm just
You
determined.
just did matching time
You
funds
people.
with your own suggestion. It's really good.
I love you so much.
And I'll conclude by saying, I think this committee will probably stick around in its existence to the end of the year, just to make sure we're all comfortable with our assignments.
Do we have a termination date right now?
The end of the year.
Yeah,
Okay.
so we're there.
Yeah.
Wonderful. All right,
That's
very
it.
good. Thank you so much. Any public comments regarding item B, the budget?
No.
Excellent. All right, Renee, take it away.
Okay, so our first ad hoc budget committee meeting was last week, actually. And we had a couple things, probably 3 main things. One was to set our next meeting and our agenda for the next meeting. And I want y'all to know the next meeting is October 10th. And the agenda will be to look and possibly revise, look at and possibly revise the budget that was proposed to the Board of Supervisors last year.
Mhm.
So we're gonna be drilling down on that. That's our homework for the ad hoc committee. And then to come ready to work and put monetize the different parts of it that weren't monetized already. And also make adjustments as we see. So the reason I want you to know that that next meeting is October 10th. That's when we're gonna be doing it. And any of the public who want to tune in and give input during the public comment section, or any of people who are not on the committee, put that on your calendar. Money's a big deal. The other thing that we're looking at, and we'll probably be discussing October 10th some more, is the possibility of using what the budget presentation at our last meeting, county staff person explained how one department can bill another department within the county for services rendered within the county. And we want to explore the possibility of our commission taking some of the workload off of some of these other county departments, the workload that has to do especially with arts and culture. Take that workload off of them, and maybe a portion of their budget to create a budget for Arts and Culture Commission that does not require more money from the county. It's money that's already there. We're gonna provide a service, and we're billing for that service in a sense through an existing process.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to explore that more concretely. We also talked a little bit about external money and bringing that in, and
Could you give
but
an
those are the
example?
big items.
Some money that could be
As a matter of fact,
redirected and.
perhaps, and they have to go for it. One, so general services is really doing. General services is having to basically run the public art program for buildings. We could take that over more completely, not just assigning commissioners to go, but really take that over and lift the workload off of some of the people that I have seen from the county who have had to be attending, or they're basically public art meetings.
And they're managing public art initiatives.
Exactly, and they're managing the initiative, and take that off of their plate. Put it on the commission's plate. Now, I forgot to mention one thing. We will be trying to create a probably level tier 2 or tier 3 FTE for arts and culture. And to have that happen, we have to get the money. So we're looking at ways to get the money with that goal. We really think there should be 2 FTEs, at least 1.5. But for the first year, we think it's only likely that there would be one. And
One.
FTE, and we looked at tiers 2 and 3. Because we wanted to see what's the level of responsibility. You can find all this online. And so we did discuss that. What's the level of responsibility? A level 2 tier, if I understand correctly, would still report to Zhang. Level 3 would be working kind of side by side with Zhang, is that correct?
No, they both work for you.
They both work for Zhang. They both
She's-
report to
she's the-
Zhang.
She's the manager.
Yeah, and, but what is their level of responsibility? Like, do people report to them or not? That's all defined in the tier level job descriptions. So we're looking at probably needing to come up with, to fund that position, money either within the county already or outside or some combination of the two. We're looking at around a full-time equivalent that would be around $200,000. That's not salary, just salary. That's salary, benefits,
And that would-
everything.
That would be an
The whole position.
administrative analyst position. that's
Yeah,
already
that's what,
established.
I'm sorry, I forgot to say that. So that's where we're going. Short term is look at the budget from the strategic plan that was generated last year and presented. That short term, drill down on it, fill in some gaps, but longer term, maybe even into the next budget cycle is having an FTE that's funded.
That's awesome.
And it's not going somewhere. In other words, it's not funded by grant money, it's funded
By the general fund.
by the general fund, right?
Quick question for you. You're
Yes.
talking about taking on some responsibilities for the public art process.
Yeah,
Within that money that's set aside, come, like, how would that get paid? Would you-
that would still be in the budget the way it is. It would have to do with, I'm thinking, I'm modeling it after that presentation that we got at the last meeting, kind of, which was that, we bill them and money from their budget moves over to
Got it.
the art and culture.
So
budget.
interdepartmental.
It's
yeah.
an interdepartmental thing. To make that really work and not end up being an explosion for Zhang, we really need an FTE,
Oh, absolutely.
okay? We need that. But the FTE could be funded by that,
that,
or at least partially funded by
I
that.
love money. Yeah, that's a big question.
Yeah, the discussion, after we got really deep into it,
Yeah.
there's so much public artwork already being done at the county level that if we succeed in this, one FTE could be nothing but public art.
Yeah.
It would take that
Sure.
and then some. And then the other position would do the commission work plan, commission work, strategic plan, and potentially grants. All right, so that's where our discussion boiled around.
Right.
Any questions from anybody? There's no action item on this yet. There might be at our meeting October 16th. Because we're hoping to at least have a new budget proposal that fills in the gaps and is this. We're hoping to get that nailed at our next October 10th meeting, get that completely ready to roll.
And
So-
there's some urgency because we need
Yeah.
to be presenting this to the supervisors
right.
in December.
That's right.
We need to
That's right.
start leveraging their support for this.
So hopefully we'll have something to report. what they're
So,
doing.
exactly, exactly, so that brings another big request is that each of us now try to get an appointment to talk about budget with either directly with our supervisor or with one of our supervisors, staff people. In my experience of doing this, say maybe some of you get appointments way faster. Mine was that it took about a month.
Mhm.
And so that's why I'm saying do it now. And during that month, we'll develop talking points.
Right,
Okay, you won't be just going in there, what am I supposed to talk about? We'll develop that and we want them to be the same talking points. So that all the people who are advising the supervisor, or we, if we are directly advising the supervisor, are all on the same page about what the ask is,
Mhm.
okay? So, so really I can't emphasize enough unless you have, you know, do not pass go, do not collect $200. Whatever with your supervisor, and some of you might. Please get on their staff list ASAP this week.
In terms
Okay.
of
You can't-
process, so once you, so like, who in the supervisor's office would be the right staff person to maybe? You're saying go right to the supervisor or?
I am, yeah, we
Is it-
have to get each supervisor has to buy in order for this to any budget stuff.
Oh, totally. I'm just thinking mechanically, I think going through, starting with the budget person in the supervisor's office, because then they'll brief the
Yes.
supervisor.
Yes,
That-
like
So-
I couldn't, I agree 100%. I couldn't advise you who that person is
Well, that's
for
what's
your
asking.
district.
Start there and then go to the.
Right.
I'm just asking, I mean, I know who it is in District 3, but. I'm
There
just
you go.
curious-
Go with
I'm just
that.
Curious if that's a specific staff position within the supervisor's office, or does it change per office?
Well, in District 2, it is a specific person.
It varies, so, they're usually done by policy areas. So, and you can always find on it on their website, one of their policy areas, the person will be, there's somebody specific for budget. However, when we've done budget in the past, when you do briefings, usually all the policy advisors for that supervisor is there, so they know their area
Mhm.
really well, if that makes sense.
So it's a specific, it's whoever's handling the policy within that.
Within arts and culture, yeah, and usually it's like their chief of staff would really be the point person for budget in general,
would
loosely.
a strategy be to first meet with staff and then request a meeting with the supervisor? Or would we make it to the supervisor?
I think that would, I mean, I think you should always request to speak with the supervisor if you can.
Yeah, start with that.
Generally, they
Okay.
will assign staff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, but we won't be ready for those until November. Okay,
But she
Because-
was suggesting that
Oh,
we
no.
start now.
Start
Why?
asking now.
So we-
but
I was gonna say-
why ask without specifics? We don't
No,
have those
start
yet.
asking for the meeting now,
It takes a month to.
because
Okay.
it might take a month to book that
Sure.
meeting.
Yeah, but
And
Is this?
so start now,
And hopefully
asking
that's
for
it,
it,
yeah,
and by the
come on.
16th, we're definitely.
yeah,
You know, if that happens, ask, could you meet after the 10th of October?
well, it has to be approved by the board or by the commission.
Exactly,
So we can't do it until after our next October meeting.
okay. So after October
No,
16th,
we have a-
I don't know how, I know,
But from that point forward, we're free to go.
Right?
yeah, exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And,
Excellent.
and as much as we can, we should.
Did you recommend that the two appointees go together?
Yes, if you can swing that and with your time, absolutely recommend
I
that.
think that would be a stronger meeting as
Yes.
well.
Okay.
Also, keeping in mind when you ask, when I did my ask, I reminded that I was appointed by that supervisor
Yeah.
for District 2, and that the topic would be arts and culture funding.
Sure. Mhm.
And what's the other thing that was helpful to him, to the guy I met with, I think? Well, I went in with talking
They want
points.
to know what you want to talk about.
Yeah,
But the
I
big
did,
thing
and
that's in there is it's gonna be a full, 1 to 2 full-time equivalents.
It's likely that's what we're gonna ask for, right? We can't vote on it yet. Yeah.
They're both
Just in
analysts.
terms of
They're both
prep-
analysts,
They would-
they're just got to do with different tiers.
Right,
Yeah.
one is gonna be around grants and arts administration. the other
Okay.
will Be around public.
Guys,
Right.
we have
We-
to zip,
Okay.
but we're thinking analyst three, two analyst three positions.
Yeah.
That's what we're tentatively working.
Yeah, and again, you can look at the whole, what are their responsibilities, you just go
Gotcha.
online.
Okay, moving on to, are there any public comments for item C, public art?
No.
Okay,
Okay, so public art, we didn't have quorum for what was gonna be the meeting to organize the big meeting. So, I was wondering if we could help Zhang right now about, by letting her know what we would like to see. When I say the big public art meeting, we're talking about the, what I call a current state analysis of how public art money for county buildings is currently being allocated, the entire process, what do the contractors have to say? What do the public art consultants have to say about the process? So this would be getting people into a room that represent all those interests and getting a nice drill down of what is currently happening. And also getting their input about where they would like, what they would like to see happen.
what do you need from us, Zach?
What do you need from us? Exactly.
Well, a couple different things. One would be a couple good dates for you to meet. Do you want it virtual, in person, or hybrid?
Hybrid would be the meeting, the ad hoc meets here and everyone else is on the line.
Yeah, or both. So what it
Okay.
is, basically what we've found just across the county, it's usually better one or the other. And hybrids ironically get the least attendance, for whatever reason. But I don't have a preference because I'm usually got to be wherever it is anyway. And then other things to consider is location. I also would like a list of questions you guys feel would be useful to ask or nothing. Just know that we do aim for about an hour or less to be efficient. We've just find that's usually the sweet spot for these kinds of sessions and things like that. Also, generally, we don't record these sessions as well, in order so that few people feel comfortable kind of giving their true thoughts and
So-
opinions. So this will not be recorded. It'll be just.
And what's it called? It's not like a art
It's like
commission
a
meeting.
community
It's
meeting.
a,
It's a community, it would be like a
It's a
community
community
meeting.
Community meeting on public
Okay.
art, so it's
Yeah.
very broad.
Yeah,
okay,
And the
Yeah.
idea is that our coordinators would be invited and they would be part of the
Yes.
public's. And they would have an opportunity to talk to
yeah,
us.
so we
when
could
you say
publicize it.
coordinators, do you mean the public art coordinators that
Yes.
currently we've
Yeah.
been using?
Three
So
public
what
art
would happen
coordinators.
is our purchasing and contracting department would send out the notices to existing general contractors, public art consultants and stuff. I would help give them the list.
Got it.
And then they would advertise it through that way. So this is a way to try to help with the process, but allow them to still have ability to go for any future
Okay,
contracts.
so really the location is where you want it to be.
Right,
I like the idea of the ad hoc being on site if possible.
yeah,
I think that's useful.
yeah.
Do you all
I do too.
agree? All right,
Yeah.
let's go with that model. Location you choose, that would be our ideal. And date wise, can we just do a survey of us and
Yeah,
send a thing out? But as far as the questions go, should we just draft some suggestions to you and send them to you?
Yeah.
Okay,
or if
so-
you want to
By
create a
what date
meeting,
would you like them? I don't wanna
Uh,
make another meeting. I wanna get going to you, whatever you need.
I don't know when I would meet them yet. I have to
Oh,
discuss. with you.
okay.
It depends on when you guys want the meeting, because I would need it
Got it.
at least
Okay,
a month or
Got
two a month ahead of time
Okay.
or so. So,
Very good. Okay, Charlene has to leave at 3, so
I'm so sorry.
once she goes, that means our quorum goes,
Yes.
the meeting ends. All right, no problem. Is there anything urgent you want to say?
What's that?
no, the only urgent thing I wanted to tell you guys is our entire leadership has been is now public and appointed. So, so from assistant CAOs or DCAOs have all been appointed,
Bill.
but I'll send out I'll send out the information with the names and everything for you guys. I think that's the biggest thing. And then the other stuff I can just send via email, so.
Okay.
And our next meeting is October
16th.
16th.
Yep.
Wonderful. So make sure you check your calendars, folks, for availability. The more here, the better.
Yeah, and especially when we're talking budget.
Very good. All right, we're skipping the other agenda items because of our quorum issue. So with that, we are adjourned.